some reason, I brought up mentioning like wanting to sing along to Les Mis or something. And he was like, I hate musicals. If you do that, I will fart. And and I don't sing it because like I'm not testing this. He farts anyway.
Oh my God.
And I'm just sitting there like, I am an idiot. How on earth have I thought this guy was into me? Like he clearly just friend zoned me with that.
I'm Emily Calloway, and this is Kismet. Kismet is a podcast featuring your true love stories. Today, I'll be speaking with Pamela Caltabiano about how she met her person while trying to win back her ex. Hi, Pamela. Welcome to Kismet. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. It is a very busy week, but I am doing well. So thank you again for being available on relatively short notice. I know that you've been sick, so I really appreciate you making time for me today.
It's okay. I'm excited to be here. I love the concept of what you're doing, and I just love anyone that's putting positivity out in the world. So you're doing it.
I'm trying at least. So to get started today, I'd love for you just to share a little bit with the listeners about yourself and who you are.
Sure. So my name is Pamela, and I am 42 years old, and I have been raised in Marietta, lived in Atlanta. Recently, my husband and I bought our first house in Marietta again. I just came right on back. So we've been here for about 2 years now. And we have 4 cats that are the greatest creatures on the face of the earth. And yeah, not to brag, but my cats are the best.
And they have some pretty cool names from what you told me earlier. Bebop.
Yes. Okay. So we have some brothers. There's Bebop and Calvin. Bebop was built for speed, and Calvin was built for comfort. And then we've got JoJo, short for Josephine. And then we have Pebbles, who is someone that we just found in a neighbor's garage in December. So she's new to the gang.
Oh my gosh. Pebbles is such a cute name for a cat.
And she is a cutie. She's a cutie, McCuterson.
You know, I was an 80s kid. You obviously were as well. So it reminds me of the Flintstones, of course, growing up with that. So take us through your sort of journey up to meeting your husband. Tell us about like where you were in life, if you were actively dating, what sort of your whole situation was.
Sure. So I've always been someone that was in a monogamous long-term relationship. That was, something that I've always loved and I always knew was right for me. But for the longest time, I was like anti-marriage. I didn't think I was going to actually get married. It wasn't not, I was totally down with being with someone for my whole life in a monogamous relationship, but like not, I don't know. I just was very turned off by the whole expectation of it all. In fact, I even had like a Facebook album from one day when I had modeled wedding dresses for like some event, some expo. And I remember titling it like, eat this up. You're never going to see this again. So that's kind of like mentally where I was for the longest time, for so long. But when I met my husband, it was 2015. It was October of 2015. But I had just gotten out of a relationship that August. So I had been with this guy for 3 years, and it was the first time that I had actually started thinking like, you know what, maybe I am open to marriage, because he was a little bit more like wanting that. And I felt myself opening up because I really did see myself with this guy. And so whenever he just like broke up with me, really truly out of the blue, kind of, it was absolutely devastating. Like it shook me to the core, like everything about who I was. Like I was not handling it well. Mm-hmm. I was a mess. Like I would say, I didn't want to be alone. I'd like stay at my brother's house, my parents' house, my best friend's house, and just like cry and sob. We didn't even live together. I needed that support. I was such a mess. And also during this period of time, I was looking for a job, and I had happened to find, a random company online that was hiring, and I was interested, but it turns out that like the hiring manager for that role knew my ex. So I did the only natural thing, which was to absolutely avoid applying to this job that I really wanted. And then the day that the job closed, like on LinkedIn, it was no longer available. I remember thinking, you idiot, do not shoot yourself in the foot for some dude that clearly doesn't care. So I did reach out to her anyway, resume, writing samples, all that. And she, did respond like, I'm so sorry, we've already hired for this position, but really love that you followed instructions, which turns out was very rare for applicants. And she,
Yeah.
I'm going to forward you to somebody else who's hiring in the marketing department. I was like, okay. So I ended up getting this job, and my boss, totally different person, she was amazing. So very quickly, because I started on October 1st. And
Mhm.
then, and like I said, I had just broken up with this guy in August, the end of August. So I'm still truly like in the middle of this absolute mess of emotions. I'm not looking for anything beyond how do I get back with him and maybe some attention. So I am on the apps. I am connecting with exes. I'm talking to this person. I'm talking to that person. But I'm clearly like, I am not in a good state of mind.
Mhm.
Um, and I did happen to mention that to my new boss and how my ex's birthday was coming up and I wanted to be out of town for it. Yeah. So I remember my second week of work. I walk in that Monday and she says, Hey, Pamela, do you want to go to the Dominican Republic on Thursday? I was like, yeah, yeah, yes, what?
I mean, it's the Dominican Republic, a beach, beautiful.
Right. And so
Yeah.
this company is a tour operator and they specialize in all-inclusive vacation packages to Mexico and the Caribbean. And so what these companies do is this thing called familiarization trips, a fam trip for short.
Mhm.
And they take different people from around the company, all different departments like accounting, reservations, product, marketing, sales, whatever. And they send them to the destinations. And then it's actually very intensive because you'll visit like 8 resorts in one day and you are like hoofing it through with the resort sales rep that's saying like, let me show you the facility, let me show you the rooms, let me, sometimes you get to sample the food or they'll host you for a lunch or a dinner. Yeah,
Sounds amazing.
it truly is. Like, it's so funny to me when people would complain. They're like, I hate fams. There's so much walking. I'm like, what is wrong with you? You are in paradise.
Yeah, like a sneak peek if you wanna go in the future to, I
Yes.
don't know, the Dominican Republic, then you can say, "Well, I've been to that resort, and that one's got really good food, and that one's got a really nice
Yes.
pool."
It has been like, it is the best situation. Like, I
Yeah.
think the people complain about fams and that. So I was like, absolutely, send me to the Dominican Republic. Let's go. So that Thursday, I'm on a plane and there I go. So this is actually where I meet my husband. Um, so we met technically, there's actually like 3 different times that we've met without realizing it. So, first of all, whenever I was hired, I was paraded around the office to say, like, okay, this is Pamela. Everybody meet her. She's new in marketing. Because at that time, the company was located across 2 different buildings. And in one of those buildings, 2 different floors. So I was in marketing. We had our own floor. And then most of the operations was on a different floor of that building. And then we
Mhm.
had like a couple other departments across the street. So it was truly like a parade. Like, let me show
Yeah.
you through the offices.
Yeah.
And he told me later that he saw me, and a lot of the resorts would bring in like treats and stuff. And that day, one of the resorts had brought in bagels. So he thought that I was the girl delivering the bagels. He noticed me right away. I
Yeah.
don't remember seeing him,
Yeah.
but I'm bagel girl. When arrive in the Dominican Republic, we're at the airport. I'm filling out my customs form. Some guy walks up to me, introduces himself, and I'm like, "Yeah, sure, bud. What's up? Hi, nice to meet you." Like, not paying attention, trying to get through customs, and I don't think twice. I found out much later that that was him, and he later was said that he was so excited and confused when he saw Bagel Girl on his flight. Um, so then the time that I remember actually meeting him, and I knew it was him, was after we left the airport. We went immediately to the hotel for site inspection, drop off stuff, and they hosted us for this huge lunch. And so we're sitting at this expansive table. There's like maybe 20 of us or something. And I'm sitting next to this woman. We're served ceviche, which, it looks raw to, I guess, a lot of people, but it's not. It's cooked with the
Yeah.
acids, the citrus, right? And I'm trying to explain this to this woman next to me. And there's this guy sitting directly across from me. And he's like, yeah, it's raw. I'm like, don't listen to him. He's not right. And then I realized he's just got a really dry sense of humor. And I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
don't listen to him. He's messing with you. And the more uncertain she gets looking between the two of us, um, the more ridiculous he becomes. So he reaches the point where he's like, it's still alive. And I'm like, oh my God, don't listen to this weirdo. But I'm also noticing, I feel like he's real funny. Like I'm just getting his sense of humor.
Yeah.
And he's pretty handsome. Now, here's the kicker: the guys I have always dated, like historically, have looked one specific way, and that is like tall, dark, and handsome kind of thing. I jokingly, sort of semi not jokingly, say I've dated my way through like South America and, parts of Europe and stuff. Like it's a little ridiculous. And this guy, he is the palest ginger boy. Like he is the opposite of anything I would ever go for. I guarantee if I was on an app, I would have been like, nope. Which, spoiler alert, later I did. um, in front of him. But no, so it took me by surprise. And I like looked at him. His sense of humor was cute to me. I really liked it. And I was like, there's just something about him. Like he's not usually my type, but like he's a handsome guy. After that, I kind of just like latched on. I wanted to be hanging out with him during the whole time we're doing site inspections. I'm like, I want to hang back with this guy. His name's David. And I found out that he worked in the hotel operations side. So he was in charge of just making sure that reservations get pushed through to the resorts and, all of that.
Yeah.
And so, this whole time that we're on the trip, by the way, again, like remember, I am an emotional disaster. All I can do is think of my ex. But also, I'm kind of craving attention in general, right? So I'm on Tinder in the Dominican Republic, chatting with the guys, the local guys, like, yeah, what's up? And then I am also talking to some of my exes. And I'm like, yeah, look at me go. Like, I got so much attention. I'm so good. But the whole time I'm also flirting with David.
Yeah.
But it's never progressing. Every night we're hanging out, we're doing these activities together, we're spending the whole day. Never does it like go forward. So we all room with someone. And, my roommates were from the marketing, or my roommate was from the marketing department. And she kept saying, like, I think he likes you. I think David likes you. And I'm like, I don't know. I think he does, but he's not like making a move. So it's our last night in the Dominican Republic. And I'm really feeling myself. This has been a great trip. It has like been healing emotionally, even though, again, cannot possibly overstate what a mess I was. But he and I are alone on the beach. I'm like, we're gonna kiss. Something's gonna happen. This is it. For some reason, I brought up mentioning like wanting to sing along to Les Mis or something, and he was like, I hate musicals. If you do that, I will fart. And I was like, oh my God, no, you won't. What kind of response is that anyway? Like,
Yeah.
weird way to flirt, but okay. And and I don't sing it because like I'm not testing this. He farts anyway.
Oh my God.
And I'm just sitting there like I am an idiot. How on earth have I thought this guy was into me? Like he clearly just friend zoned me with that. Like, all
Men
right,
men are so different.
good night.
It's really
Yeah, I'm like, what? I still mention it to him. I'm like, what? And he's like, I guess I had to fart. I'm sorry. It worked. I'm like, what do you mean it worked? No. So, whatever. But I, at that point, was like, okay, I go back to my room. I'm like, hey, girl, like, we read this wrong. He is
Yeah.
not into me. Now something that had happened actually a day prior is that when we were doing a site inspection, I had slipped and fallen and I had hit my head really hard and like pulled a muscle in my neck.
Mm.
So I actually couldn't turn my head anyway. So I was having a time. And occurred to me that whenever we were going to be leaving the next day and I would have to go get my car from the airport and drive home, how was I going to drive? I couldn't even move my head. So the next morning, like the morning that we're leaving the Dominican Republic, we're all sitting together for breakfast, like a bunch of us coworkers. And David, of course, is there as well. And, while I'm trying to figure this out, I'm just trying to kill time swiping on Tinder, looking at all these guys, and we're all laughing at profiles and I'm just waiting for responses from friends and family back home, like to wake up and be like, hey, I'll give you a ride. And as I'm swiping through, I see some profile and I don't know, my brain just did not click that it said David and it was like a point, 001, like obviously right there.
Yeah.
But his picture was a silhouette. So I didn't obviously recognize him. And I stopped because I laughed because he had something in his profile about like how all girls have the same picture and it's them in Machu Picchu. And I start laughing and I'm like, no, all guys have the same picture and it's them with a tiger. So I've vocalized this profile out loud and people are looking. And because it was a silhouette, I was like, I want to see the pictures. So I think I click on the image to like open up the profile and swipe left so I can see more pictures. It turns out I didn't do the first click. So I just swipe left. All the coworkers are like dying in hysterics. And I'm like, what's going on? And that's when someone was like, you just rejected David. And he's just sitting there like, so, and of course, then I'm like, oh, what if what if I had swiped right? Would he have? Like, oh, I want to know.
Yeah. That would be even, I mean, I wonder what would be more awkward. You swiping left or swiping right and him not having swiped right on you. That would have been like humiliating. At least you're like in a power position. You feel
Right.
bad, but at least you're in a power position. But
Exactly. You're right. That could have been disastrous in a
yeah.
whole different way. But
Yeah.
instead it was just humorous for everybody. It was like, oh damn, David, you got rejected.
Yeah.
So anyway, I hadn't heard back from anybody about giving me a ride to the airport. And David was like, look, I'll help you out. I took Marta. So, I'll drive you home. So he did. And that night when we got back, that's when I realized he did like me. And it's because this is like the crazy cat person coming in. Um, it's because I knew that he had two cats at home and I had one cat at home. And when he dropped me off, I lived like a third floor walk up and he carried my luggage up and then he just stayed up there and chatted with me for a while. It turns out he only lived like a mile away and he used a bike as his primary mode of transportation. So like it was easy for him to like just zip up and down the street. And he actually just stayed and hung out with me. And that's what like clicked. I was like, oh my God, yes, he did fart in the Dominican Republic. However, this man is not rushing to get home to his beloved cats. He likes me. Still nothing happened, right?
Yeah.
He's so hard to read. But it was the next day that he finally asked me on a date and we went out and, obviously like we kept dating. But he did later tell me that the reason that he didn't want to make a move was because he didn't want to be that guy that just like hooked up with a coworker on a fam trip. And also he was worried about just the fact that we worked together. So that was how we met.
Yeah, no, I mean, I can completely get that. It sounds like you were in a big enough place that, hopefully being in different buildings and like different levels that maybe you wouldn't cross paths every day, but you know what they say, don't eat where you
Right.
where you fart. How about that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
So
yeah, I totally get that. But
me
obviously
too.
worked out. So
And we were very cautious about it. We didn't tell anybody at work for a really long time because, we were just trying to figure things out. And like I said, I could not overstate what a mess I was. And I was very open with him about that too, which is even more insane because I don't know how. This is where, you kind of have said like our story is truly a story of like patience and timing
yeah.
and stuff. And like the patience was such an important piece. And also I would add communication because I liked him. I thought he was very funny. But I was just not emotionally available. And I respected him enough to want to let him know. And I guess I
Mhm.
managed to do it in a way that wasn't like, let me run away from this girl who's clearly like waving every single red flag. Like that exists in this universe. Um, but we did take it very, very slow. And in the end, I'm so glad we did. Um, and it's funny because I've talked about where I was in life, like when I met
Mhm.
him, but where he was also kind of interesting because as an adult, he had never lived in one city more than 5 years. And he was actually coming up on 5 years in Atlanta.
Mhm.
He, for the most part, had grown up in the like metro Atlanta area. So he had actually worked at this company previously, like 20 years before. And he just happened to be back. It was like a blip on his radar. He was already packed. Like he had boxes, and I saw them in his apartment already packed. He was ready to just like up and move to California. He didn't have any plans really. He was just going to go to California and see what happens. As I learned these things, I was like, oh my God, you actually like didn't move. He's like, well, yeah, I felt like there was something worth exploring. So I wanted to do that. It's like, cool. Even though I was like, you know, pushing you at arm's length constantly, like being like, I'm not ready. I still want to get over or get back with my ex. And he was like, yeah, no, just something told me to have patience with you. And
Yeah.
I mean, his friends were like, no, cut and run. That's
Yeah.
not going to work. And it was also, like I guess he just like listened to his gut, even though my gut was saying all sorts of nonsense. I also listened to mine because there was this time actually that I thought we broke up on a lunch break randomly because I think he was saying something. He just sounded really upset, like saying something about how we're very different because we really are. We're very
Mhm.
different personalities. And I thought he was breaking up with me. So I start crying and I basically like, you know, think we've broken up. And the whole time I just remember being like, I mean, I guess it makes sense. We don't seem to have a ton in common, but there's just something about him. I'm not ready. And then like
Mhm.
an hour later, it turns out it was just a misunderstanding. I'm like,
How far were you into dating him at that point?
like a couple months.
Yeah.
And it was so silly. And the thing is, while we're dating, I'm seeing another guy at the same
Mhm.
while I have like, I mean, I remember him coming over to my apartment once and turning on YouTube and like my recently watched playlist of how to get your ex back is all up there. Like, when I say red flags, like I
Oh my god.
cannot possibly explain how red these flags were. But I was very open with him about it too. Like whenever I was having a lot of stress and I was feeling very confused, I would, text him. He would meet me in the stairwell at work and just let me talk it out. And he was just kind of like always just always there being like, you're going to do what's right for you. uh,
Mhm.
Finally it kind of came a little bit to a head on New Year's Eve because as I said, I was dating someone else at the same time too. um, I was waiting to be asked to do something on New Year's Eve and he didn't, so I am making plans with this other guy. So it's like 10 p.m. on New Year's Eve and he texts me like, what are you doing? I'm like, kind of busy, man. And he got so upset and he was like, what? You're dating other people? It's like, yeah. And he was just like, okay, I don't mean to like, I'm not trying to force you into anything. He's like, but I personally can't be dating someone that's seeing other people. He's like, it just makes me very uncomfortable. And I was like,
Mhm.
well, I want to keep seeing you, but also I don't want to be anyone's girlfriend. Like I'm not in this place. So
Yeah.
we end up in just this like confusing, stressed out stage of a few weeks where we see each other all the time and we're just kind of ignoring it. And finally, we have this conversation in January. I'm like, look, I don't want to be your girlfriend, but I do really like you. And I'm willing to stop seeing this other guy because, like, even though it's super fun, I know he's toxic. I don't, I'm willing to push that away because I like you, but I don't like you enough to be in a relationship. I want to be with my ex. Let's be real. And he's like, all right, weirdo, let's do it. we do that for like months. I am refusing to be his girlfriend. We travel to Mexico together on a vacation. Like we're
Mhm.
doing boyfriend girlfriend things. And I'm just still like, nope, nope, I'm not your girlfriend. Nope. Um, but it took a while, but like as I'm healing, right? I'm healing, I'm like, this guy's really actually an amazing person. Like,
Yeah.
holy shit, he's been dealing with me all this time. So I do remember there was finally one day where I was like, hey, you should ask me to be your girlfriend. and, and so he did. He like kind of made it a thing for me. Like he came over and he was like, would you please be my girlfriend? Or like, just it was so simple and silly and cute, but it was just great because like having that growth. And that's really like that was a huge turning point. Like I think when I really realized what when I was no longer so completely consumed in a cloud of thoughts with my ex, and I realized like I actually have this really amazing guy like right here who's genuinely cares about me and is treating me so much better. And it still
Mhm.
took a really long time for me to like break through into the like love and like really feeling the connection with him because, even though I was healing, I was still in such a negative space.
Yeah.
Um, and I was still in a very like comparative space. Like, should it be like this or should it be like that? I had a lot of hard time trying to reconcile our differences, which now as I've grown and as it's been so many years later, I realize they're not so much differences. Like, they say opposites attract, but I don't think
Mhm.
it's necessarily that. I think it's that you just find someone whose strengths complement yours.
Mhm.
And a lot of times they're different or they could be like just different aspects of the same strength or like it's just I feel actually now that we are so incredibly similar on all of everything that like actually matters.
Yeah.
And but like the way we handle things so wildly different. Like he is my rock. And it's funny to think of me as his rock, but I am.
I mean, I think it's great that you were so communicative from the beginning because as you're going through this timeline, I think about, I can't help but think about myself and my past relationships and like, 2 months out of a serious relationship, jumping in with somebody else, that is like I certainly know I wouldn't be ready.
Right.
And so, I mean, giving yourself that time and knowing yourself enough to say, hey, listen, I do like you. I want to see where this goes, but I also need time to figure myself out and figure out, like, what I want and to heal and to explore and like find this new version of me that is alone for the first time after a serious relationship and that you knew yourself well enough to both give yourself a chance to continue seeing things through with this man, but also didn't just like say, okay, well, somebody wants me. I'm just going to be in a relationship now and that's going to be what I do. Like, you gave yourself that time and it sounds like he was mature enough to realize that you also needed that like it wasn't about him at all. It was about you.
Yeah, and it's kind of wild to me. Like, and I think that you really like you hit on something with, just 2 months out of the serious relationship. Like, that's the worst time to just start a new
Yeah.
one. And I think that was a huge thing that held me back for so long is because I did think about that. I'm like, I haven't even like taken any time alone to grieve, like I don't want to just jump back into a relationship, even though technically you could argue I have, even if it's not in the same terms of the previous relationship. And so that did hold me back. And I would say like it took me a few years, honestly, to like fully come back into my own and feel confident in just me as an individual. And I don't know that I could have done that with just anybody. I think that because he was able to see like when I needed my own space or where I needed to grow and just be patient with me, he was very good about allowing that breathing room if I needed it. And so it was funny just because up until the pandemic, those 5 years, it's crazy to me when I think that was 5 years that we were dating before
Yeah.
the pandemic. But yeah, for 5 years, like within the first like year year and a half, like I did start to really fall in love with him. And
Mhm.
we did have a lot of ups and downs during that time too, because we were navigating, because like we both, he came from very unstable, just kind of environment. And then I came from a very spoiled environment. And we're both
Mhm.
trying to figure out how to be grown-ups all of a sudden. And maybe like one of our actions will affect the others. So we were having a lot of growing pains in that respect, like trying to figure out, like, because I was more demanding about like, okay, bud, you got to have your finances in better order. And he'd be
Mhm.
like, okay, have you considered, doing this over here? Like maybe being a little bit more clean? Hmm?
Mm.
And I'm like,
Mhm.
clean my house? I don't understand that. So, we had like things. And when he moved in, actually, I'd never lived with a guy before. And I was mad about it. And it's funny because my parents were like, it makes sense for David to move in with you. Like, my traditional Italian parents were like,
Yeah.
let the man move in. And I was like, no, he can't move in. I don't know if this relationship is going to last for a lifetime. And I don't want to have to deal with another heartbreak and then someone having to move out on top of that. They were like, Pamela, just let the man move in. So I did. And I was so annoyed when I realized I loved living with him.
Mm.
Because at first I was like, you have 1 month and you have to find your own place. And he's like, damn, you can tell who's the impatient one.
Yeah.
But like that month, I was like having the best month. I absolutely adored living with him. I was like,
Yeah.
it just made our relationship even better. So I was like, please don't move out. I really like having you here. When the pandemic hit, we finally got 1 bedroom to ourselves. And I was terrified about that. I was like, I'm going to be quarantined in this tiny little apartment with him and like no other friends. And I kind of knew at that point in time it was either going to make or break the relationship. And it made it. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
obviously the pandemic sucked for so many reasons, but like, as far as our relationship was concerned, like our communication got so much better, which was already really strong. Um, but like our communication was better. We really like learned so much more about each other. Like we bonded more than I ever thought we could. We both started thinking like, wait, maybe marriage is an option, because he also wasn't really
Yeah.
thinking like that. Because when we first met, actually, he used to say, well, I mean, even if I did ever get married, I would never wear a wedding ring. And I was like, well, if you got married to me, your ass sure would. Like,
Mhm.
and now he has 3 wedding rings. He like changes them like clothes. It's wild, like how we've changed. We also both were like, we're never going to move out of the city. And then we bought our house close to my family, like in
Yeah.
the suburbs. Um, but it's funny because like we grew parallel, like with each other like this. Um, he actually told me something I didn't know the other day when I was
Mm.
telling him that we were going to be talking on your
Mhm.
podcast. And we were reminiscing about the Dominican Republic. And he said, you remember the guy that was my roommate? I said, oh, yeah, yeah, Brandon. It's like, yeah, Brandon said to me one night, why don't you just marry her? And
Wow.
because Brandon could tell that David liked me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm sorry, what? And he was like, yeah, Brandon was like, you should just marry her. And I thought that was so funny. It made me want to reach out to Brandon and be like, hey, do you remember this all these years later?
Turns out you were a little bit psychic.
Right. And so was the lady who did music trivia at the Independent.
Yeah.
We used to go there on Wednesdays, and like almost immediately she's like, oh my God, y'all are a couple. This is so cute. The last couple that used to come to music trivia with me, they got married. And we were like, whatever. Things
That's it.
changed.
That's amazing. So, I mean, I mentioned the patience earlier, and like I think that this is one of the reasons why I don't know that I believe in the one that gets away, because when you know in your gut it's the right person, like this man he had his luggage, his stuff packed. He was going to move to California. He not only like dealt with red flag central, but he gave you the breathing room. He didn't date other people. He just waited for you to realize that you were in love with him back, and the rest is
Yeah.
history.
And I mean, and I don't want people to think like, oh, just like let someone treat you like crap.
No.
I want to be clear that even though I was an emotional mess, I always I did everything and was honest with him, not to the way where it would be painful or hurt, but if I
Right.
was having doubts and I was really confused, I wanted him to be aware because I always wanted him to feel like he had complete agency and
Yeah.
context to say, like, you know what, this isn't right for me or this is. And the way he just kept showing up for me, um, it really showed me so much. And I, I also don't believe in the one that got away because I don't necessarily believe there's one person for everyone. I love is so much something that you have to work on. And
Mhm.
it became kind of the thing where it was like I looked at him, I'm like, you know what? He's the person. He's a person that I want to work for. Like it doesn't feel like,
Mhm.
but
Yeah.
I love him so much that I think that it's like if in the future it feels like work, he's worth that work.
Yeah.
Um,
100%. I mean, to your point earlier, I think there's also a difference between being in a situation where the timing isn't necessarily ideal, like when you were getting out of a relationship and working on yourself and healing, and you can't change timing. You meet somebody when you meet them, and
right,
either, you make that choice to kind of lean in and see where it goes, or you say, "Hey, I this is not how I see myself, going through life. I'm gonna nope on out of here." So it's
yeah,
either that or it's I mean, I think there's a difference between timing and difference between being just like a shitty person to be
right,
to be like, well, I'm just gonna screw around and he's nothing. I can take advantage of him or whatever. I mean, you were
right.
obviously very much the former. You couldn't help the timing with that you met him.
Mhm.
Um, and you were very communicative about that and honest. And that's what laid the foundation for you guys to have the relationship you have now.
Yeah. And it's been like, it's been so great too because the longest relationship he had ever been in before we met was like a year or so. So
Mm,
he had one of the things that like we worked through huge on his side is I was an over communicator, right? Like
yeah.
I even now he's like, "Oh my god, do I need to know every single detail?" I'm like, "Yeah, why not?" And and he was an under communicator. So that was
Yeah.
also part of our growth in those first 5 years and was really learning like I was bringing him out of his shell, like helping him feel confident in being able to just like communicate his needs and his wants and his
Mhm.
thoughts. So I mean, we really it's easy to sit here and be like, "Oh, this is how much he helped me," but like we did like there was so much back and forth. It's again like the complementary strengths and differences because at first I used to think like we're so opposite. He's quiet and I'm loud. But it wasn't really that. Like I'm very comfortable with communication. He's
Yeah.
great at receiving it, but he wasn't super comfortable with communicating his own feelings, and he's helped me like managing my anxiety. There was actually like a couple things that he said to me that really stood out that were kind of moments and when I was like, I love him and this is really right and things like that. One of them was I started getting anxious about something one day and he said, Pamela, when do your what ifs ever come true? And I was like, what do you mean, my what ifs? And I have never, and I go to therapy, like, but I've never caught on to the fact that my anxiety spirals always start with a what if. I mean,
Mhm.
he clocked that immediately.
Mhm.
And so I was so stunned because that ended up being a huge shift for me that he was able to so easily identify, like, that's the beginning of your spiral. And I'd be like, what? And he could help me stop it. So, like, for him to be so in tuned, that's like a huge green flag that popped up in my head. Whenever I've been dating somebody, I tend to pick up their language, like their silly words they use. No one has ever mimicked me, right? Like I've always
Mm.
used their words, no one's ever used mine. He's the only person that has ever done that, like where he's mirrored my language a little bit.
Yeah.
And that was like another thing that really stood out to me as unique because I'm like, I've never had a man do that. I've always been the one that, like will mimic the language or mirror the language. It's one of those like teeny tiny things, but it meant the world to me.
I think that's a really powerful insight, that he sees these languages and like that these words and the way that you speak and like that becomes the way you speak together. It becomes a shared language. And I
Yeah.
think that's really beautiful. Like I think that's really it becomes your own language, but also I'm sure he thinks it's cute. He thinks it's funny or whatever too, right? So the fact
Yeah.
that he thinks the way that you say things like are cute and funny and he wants to adopt them, I think that's awesome.
Also, he's the only person that has ever been able to identify the various screams. Like I said, I'm a noisy person. I'm also a jumpy person. I
Yes.
think I see a bug, I shriek. I see an actual bug, holy hell. Like, I walk into something, it's a different yell. I mean, I'm constantly yelping. It's sometimes I really wonder, I'm like, how can anyone live with me? But
Oh.
but he knows my screams. And I didn't realize that because there would be times that I'd see a bug, I'd scream, and he'd run up immediately with like a paper towel or something. And I'm like, how did you know there was a bug? He's like, you have a bug scream.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, I don't know what your like a murderer's coming after me scream is like. I hope I never learn, but that's kind of what your bug scream gives off.
Oh my gosh. It's like parents with their kids, like, they know what different cries mean, and
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
that's
So,
amazing.
but those are kind of like some of those things that like those like really, really personal things. This is special. Like I genuinely feel like he knows me better than I know me half the time.
Yeah, I love it. I love that you both also in your growth together and giving yourself space to, like, grow into the 2025 versions of yourselves, which include marriage, which include like, being with someone that is not your South American tour kind of guy.
Mississippi boy now.
Yeah. By the way, obviously, I'm a ginger as well. My mom was the same way. She's got similar coloring to you. So she never was interested in blondes or redheads at all. And then she married my father, and the
Something
rest is
about you
history.
gingers, you're powerful. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I don't know.
No, one thing I know I mentioned that I'm 42 currently, and he's older than me. And so when we met, he was 37. He's 47 now. So even when we met, we were older and later in life, and it took us, like I said, a long time to even decide that we wanted to get married before we started having that conversation. So we got engaged in 2023 and married in 2024, and so it was kind of funny because like not only did I never see myself as a bride for the longest time of my life, and he never saw himself like as a groom necessarily. We got married in our late 40s and or
Yeah.
mid to late. And yeah, I forget all the time how old we are. Like I think that I don't know, I think it's a lot more common to like find your person later in life than it is
Mhm.
earlier. I don't know.
I was thinking about this actually earlier today. I think, for some of us, and I include myself in this, obviously, I've never been married, but I think that we need to have relationships and to your point about like the one for that particular time in your life, like learn learn from them. Like some folks are lucky enough to meet someone when they're younger that they learn all their lessons with the same person. For
Mhm.
me, I needed a lot of lessons from a lot of different people.
I mean,
And every time I thought, perhaps I was ready and whatever, now in retrospect I look back and I was like, "Oh my gosh, that taught me so much about this. That taught me about communication. That taught me about what it's like to be seen by somebody. That taught me about what I don't want in a relationship ever again. And so I think that some people, it's just a longer journey, and it doesn't mean that it's like, you know, a never happening journey. It just means you still got to figure things out about yourself first.
absolutely. Like I said, I've been in a lot of, longer term relationships, and there was one that was supposed to end in marriage. And there was just something in my gut that was like, absolutely not. And then and that was when I was younger, like when I first graduated college kind of time. Um, he had a 5-year plan for us and everything. And I was like everything in my body was like, No, no, no."
Yeah.
Um, but I learned so much from that. I had another relationship, when I was in grad school that was actually like he's probably the one ex that like I genuinely love. Like he is a
Mhm.
wonderful human. Um, and I wish nothing but the best for him. Like I feel so warm towards him, his family, and
Mm.
everything. And like he I feel so bad because like I had actually cheated on him and that was the end of our relationship. But
Mhm.
in retrospect, the lessons I learned really stuck with me. Like I hate that he ended up having to be on the brunt of that.
Mhm.
And of course we've since like made up, moved on, we're friends, like he's happy and he's married and has a kid on the way kind of thing. But
Mhm.
um but the lessons I learned with him are so valuable. Like they really made such a huge difference in my life. So it's not just because things like because he and I are good, because obviously that wasn't a good end to the relationship. But every single relationship that I have had, like I have taken those moments of learning and moved forward because it was like, okay, well, why did I cheat on him? What was the real issue going on? And so that
Mhm.
really helped me kind of understand where like where was the point where I could have stopped this from becoming such a painful experience. And also just the way like that he handled it and
Mm.
the grace he showed me just as a human. Um,
Mhm.
I learned so much. And that's another thing. Like I know people really don't like talking about their past if they've cheated or something like that. But I was always very open with David about that as well. And I was like, look, I know, he and I are both very much, like absolutely not. That's like a deal breaker. But I was very upfront with them. I was like, yeah, I was like, but the reason I really, want to tell you about this is because I want to tell you what I learned. Because I felt like that was really valuable. Like it's so easy to look at like past relationships as just failures and whatever. They're stepping stones to get you to where you need to be.
100%. In the restaurant industry, we always had a little saying that was like, it's not the mistakes you make, it's how you respond to them.
Yes,
So, and I think that is something that you can take through towards life. Like, did you course correct afterwards? What did you learn from it? What did
yes,
it teach you about how you're going to handle the situation in the future, about like how you feel hurting someone else in that way. Like it's to your point, really sad that that had to happen. But I think that what you took from it really did help you along your journey as well.
for sure. And I just, I feel like it's so important to be able to embrace like all aspects of who you are, even the messy, ugly parts that you want to hide, especially when you're talking about relationships, right? Like you want to be open with people because often I feel that, like what hurts the most if you get into an argument and there's some sort of betrayal, it's usually not the act of the betrayal itself, but it's the hiding of it.
Hmm.
That's so painful. And so I think that even when it comes to like, whenever I was starting my relationship with David, being very open with him about how I was feeling in that moment, or if he asked about my past and being open about the mistakes I had made, I know there's always that possibility that the person is like, oh, once a cheater, always a cheater kind of thing. Or people can shut down. People are scared to share things about themselves with a potential new partner. But I do think that being open and genuine about the things that you'd rather keep hidden or rather like not mention, but like I feel like that was an important piece of having that trust develop.
Absolutely. Because if you hide something like that from your partner, then they find out some other way, or it comes out like a year down the road or something like that,
Yeah,
then they
exactly.
wonder what else have you been hiding? Like what did you
Right.
not share? And so yeah, I think that vulnerability in like opening yourself up to like rejection, almost saying like I did something that I'm not proud of, but it's part of my past and it's sort of who I am. And either you'll accept me for this and still love me, or you won't.
Right.
I think that's also growth as well.
Yeah.
So, well,
Sure.
I'd love to hear, through these relationships you've had in your marriage, like what you with any advice that you'd like to share with the singles out there who haven't found their one. And it can be anything about, about ways to meet the one, being open, or any sort of advice that you feel like would be helpful?
Well, I think, okay, so one thing that's super kind of unfair to say because I'm very extroverted is, and not everybody is, but definitely like just interact with the people around you. Because also, like I had said, that David was not physically my type. Like if I was only exclusively looking on apps, I guarantee I
Mhm.
never would have, I would have opened his picture and been like, oh, he's handsome, but I don't date redheads kind of thing.
Yeah.
So like just being out and open, like in your environment and willing to try something new. So like maybe they're not your type, but like if you really connect with their personality, like explore that. Why not? Like don't no one has a type really. Like your type is really just like your personality at the end of the day. All of that can change. But as far as like the actual like relationships and like being single and everything is, like I can look at you. I barely know you, right? But I can look at you and I'm like, you are a brilliant, talented woman. Like you have so much to offer. And I know that from just this little bit of interaction that you've had since I, like met you online. And I mean, everybody, like for the most part, like I just believe that everybody has so much to offer in general. Like, and I feel like just believing and like loving yourself is it's just like a huge part of it. Like, I don't know, like it sounds so weird to say and so like cop out since I am married now and stuff, but like I don't know, like I look at you and I'm like, "Oh my god, she's beautiful. She's smart. She's a treasure." Like I like any man would be or woman whatever, look or whoever would be lucky to have you and or like to be with you. And I guess I just want other people to believe that about themselves. It took me a while for sure to believe that about me, but it's true. Like we're all so unique and different and beautiful and magical. And like it's okay to embrace the messy. It's okay to embrace mistakes. Just forgive yourself or forgive others, but like just move forward. I don't know. I feel like I just sound like a ridiculous self help book.
I think all of that's beautiful, and thank you so much. um, I mean, what I usually say about why I'm single is that, for me personally, like I know what I'm looking for in terms of like another person. I want a partner. I want someone that's deep with strong integrity that I can go through life with. And when shit hits the fan, which it always does, I mean, I lost my dad last year. That was something that was like really traumatic. But as we get older, people are going to get sick. I might get sick. You just never know. And so I want somebody that is capable of riding the ride, the highs and the lows, and that we have a really hell of a good time in the highs, but that they are my rock in the lows too. And I don't let fear make decisions for me. I try not to. Like I try to I'm more afraid of being with the wrong person than being alone. And the older I get, the more it's kind of funny, the more I'm like that because now I've started to see friends that their marriages have crumbled
Yeah.
um, because they weren't true to themselves at the beginning. So that's what I keep hoping for is like when it's the right person in the right time, that it's going to be something that is hopefully for life or as long as health allows it to be. So, but it is still hard. Sometimes you do still get in your head. It's still like, I'm getting old. Who's going to want my old ass now? But
Yeah, I've trust me, I've gotten in my head like that before,
yeah.
even while in the relationship. But like, it's I think I think that it's actually kind of awesome to be in the position where you're older and never been married or anything like that. Because again, like you've had so much time to learn about who you are and what you want. And, everything that you just described in a partner, I think that's what kind of everyone wants, right? Like, and the beauty about that is that you might meet somebody who is exactly that. but they're not exactly that in that moment. Like God knows David and I weren't when we met each other. And I'm definitely not saying date for potential
Yeah.
because like that's no one's got time for that nonsense either. But always just being open, like having an understanding of like, okay, these are my non-negotiables and this is what I'm truly looking for. Like I need to know that this person could support me through, these types of moments. But, maybe if that person isn't necessarily, you know, perfect right then or like the right thing, if you can genuinely look at them and say, they're growing and I see that, maybe don't throw the baby away with the bathwater. But at the
Yeah.
same time, if you don't see these things that are your core needs, like, yeah, bye, hit the road because no one has time for that. But, but yeah, I mean, it is better to be alone than be with someone who sucks. That's for sure. I,
Yeah, and to wonder if there's a better fit out there. It's not fair for yourself and it's not fair for whoever you're doing life with. They
right.
deserve someone that feels lucky to walk through life with them too. So that's something that's actually one of the parameters that I have is, do I feel lucky to be with this person? And lucky isn't necessarily physical. It's not necessarily like financial or success or anything. It's like who they are at their core. Like, do I feel like I am the luckiest person to have found this person to
Yeah,
do life with? And that's really important to me.
I like that. I think that's really
Yeah. Well, Pamela, thank you so much for your time, your vulnerability, your insights. I really, really enjoyed this conversation. I know that we had some technical difficulties getting here, but I'm hoping that the third time was a charm because this I do feel like was a really good conversation. So I really enjoyed speaking with you and everything that you shared.
Yeah, I had a great time chatting with you too. I love talking about love.
Well, have a great rest of your day, and
Thank you so
I
much.
will talk to you soon.
Okay,
Okay, bye.
thanks. Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to Kismet. If you enjoyed this week's episode, please like and subscribe wherever you're listening. If you'd like to share your own true love story, please send it to kismetstoriespodcast@gmail.com, or you can connect with me on Instagram at Kismet Stories Podcast. Until next time, be bold, be kind, and be open to everyday magic. Your person might be right down the street, or they might be literally in front of you while you swipe left to meet.